Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Who's in My Classroom? Building Developmentally and Culturally Responsive School Communities. By Gess LeBlanc, Ph.D., with Tim Frederick, Ph.D. Narrated by Leon Nixon. Introduction. Ms. Lombardo took the time to get to know me. She would talk to me about the books I was reading to connect with me. I gradually began to feel safe around her. I still don't know how she was able to see the loneliness that so many before her had failed to notice, but I do know that she was determined to make it right. She was committed to being that one person in my life who I could rely on and confide in. Anonymous Youth Communication Teen Writer. From the story, My Teacher Saved Me from Solitude. There's an adage that says that you can't teach what you don't know. While the origins of the quote appear to be unknown, the idea is that effective teachers must know their subject matter. But knowing your subject matter is just one element of good teaching. I wrote this book because I believe you also can't teach who you don't know. Over the past few decades, researchers in education and psychology have found convincing evidence that learning is also strongly influenced by students' sense of who they are and their beliefs in their ability to learn. It is also influenced by their experiences at home and their level of cognitive and emotional development. This research has important implications for how we prepare teachers to enter the field and how we support them during their careers. It helps us rethink our notions of what it means to be an effective teacher. Yes, we need to know our subject matter, but getting to know students is also crucial to our effectiveness as educators. I'm a developmental psychologist. Over the past 20 years, I've worked as a faculty member in the School of Education at Hunter College of the City University of New York, where I support the preparation of teachers, school leaders, and counselors. During that time, I've become increasingly interested in how children's experiences inside and outside the classroom influence their learning and engagement in school. As a black man and father of 2 black sons, I've focused especially on how those experiences influence the school's engagement in BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and People of Color, youth, and other young people who may feel unseen in school, including LGBTQ+ students and youth who live in poverty. As an expert in the field of child and adolescent development, I've worked as an educational consultant at the state level and with urban, suburban, and rural school districts. My focus has been helping teachers design lessons that address students' cognitive, physical, social, and emotional needs in ways that also demonstrate an understanding of their students' lives and cultures. One of the most rewarding features of my work with teachers and schools is talking with students about how they're experiencing school. We talk about what helps them learn and obstacles that make learning more difficult. We also discuss what makes a good teacher. I've had the opportunity to ask these questions of more than 1,000 children, ranging from age 8 to 18. I've never had a child tell me that their teacher was a good teacher because they knew a lot about a subject area like math or English. What they tell me is that good teachers get to know them. They make them feel like they're cared for. They make lessons interesting and engaging by connecting them to students' lives. It's a good sign that students expect teachers to know their subject matter. But for students, that's not enough. Good teachers do 2 things at once. We work to understand our students while simultaneously helping them to understand the content that we are charged with teaching. But with the increasing ethnic, racial, and linguistic diversity in schools throughout the United States, the challenge of knowing our students is ever growing. It's virtually certain that we will have students in our classroom whose life experiences are very different from our own. These differences can present challenges to getting to know them, but they also present opportunities to learn about others and ourselves. in ways that make us more effective teachers and make teaching more interesting. But what does it mean to know students? And why is knowing students so important? Once upon a time, many teachers and students shared similar racial, religious, and socioeconomic backgrounds, which made it easier for teachers to know their students. That's important because academic research suggests that teachers are more effective when they have knowledge of their students' cultural backgrounds and how they develop cognitively, physically, socially, and emotionally. As the evidence base has grown, the field of teacher education and professional development has increasingly emphasized the importance of developmentally appropriate and culturally responsive teaching. For example, through its developmentally appropriate practice, DAP, framework, the National Association for the Education of Young Children, NAEYC, emphasizes that knowing how children develop and learn, knowing the individual needs of children, and knowing their cultural backgrounds are critical to supporting learning. Similarly, the field of culturally responsive teaching has emphasized the importance of understanding students' cultural backgrounds and understanding how culture shapes their experiences in school. This research has raised awareness of the importance of designing lessons that reflect an understanding of who children are, both developmentally and culturally. This book is grounded in the understanding that development is shaped by culture. Conversely, to teach in ways that are responsive to children's cultural backgrounds, we need to understand how they develop. Thus, we introduce the concept of developmentally and culturally responsive teaching, DCRT. That's a mouthful, but the concept is simple. DCRT applies the principles of culturally responsive teaching in ways that are responsive to the developmental needs of students. It is grounded in 4 tenets. 1. Our beliefs and expectations about children from backgrounds different from our own influence how we teach. 2. Enhancing our knowledge of child and adolescent development makes us more effective teachers. 3. Understanding the relationship between culture and development makes our teaching more effective. 4. Lack of awareness of how schools shape children's perceptions of themselves and their abilities to make our teaching less effective. Developmentally and culturally responsive teaching is important because when teachers have knowledge of their students, they're more effective educators. That knowledge can come from many sources, including colleagues, parents, and school records, and even social science research. But the most important source is the students themselves. That's why students' voices are centered in this book. In each chapter, I summarize key social science research about youth development and culture, and I pair the research findings with true stories by young people that bring the research to life. The young people reflect on personal, developmental, and cultural experiences that influence their learning and behavior in school. Their stories have an immediate emotional and intellectual effect. They may remind you of students you have taught, and you will learn about the feelings and experiences behind student behavior that we seldom have access to. The diversity of experiences in the students' stories and their reflections on those experiences are vivid examples of why it's important not to assume that we understand what our students are going through. Together, the academic findings and the student testimonials make a powerful case for the value of developmentally and culturally responsive teaching. This book will help teachers, counselors, and youth workers who want to better understand their students so they can enhance their practice. It will help administrators and policymakers create school settings that are more likely to advance student achievement. However, this is not a workbook or manual. It does not provide you with a script of everything that you need to know about teaching children from diverse cultural and racial backgrounds. Instead, it is a guide for how to develop a curious, non-judgmental mindset that will help you, 1, break through superficial assumptions to really get to know your students. 2, see students' strengths more clearly and help them reveal their strengths. And 3, go beyond the idea that demographic characteristics define your students' possibilities. This book is divided into 8 chapters that are designed to raise awareness, foster knowledge, and enhance teaching skills. Each chapter includes excerpts from stories by several students, plus a discussion of connections between students' experiences and educational and psychological research. And each chapter ends with ideas and resources that teachers and administrators can use to take action, called, respectively, What Teachers Can Do and What Schools Can Do. In Chapter 1, we provide an overview of developmentally and culturally responsive teaching, explain why it's so important, and discuss resources that teachers and schools can use to enhance their knowledge of child and adolescent development. Chapter 2 focuses on how our beliefs and assumptions about our students shape our interactions with them. It also explores ways to change negative beliefs and undo bias. Chapter 3 examines how identity development occurs within the context of school and discusses culturally responsive ways in which teachers and schools can help support positive identity development. In Chapter 4, we focus on race and gender and look at how teachers and schools can foster positive racial and gender identity development. Chapter 5 looks at how students' experiences outside of school influence their experiences within school. Specifically, we focus on the impact of stress and trauma and discuss ways in which family dynamics, housing and income insecurity, foster care, and other stressors shape how young people learn and behave in school. In Chapter 6, we shift our focus to helping students heal from stress and trauma, and how teachers and schools can implement trauma-sensitive practices in ways that benefit all students. In Chapter 7, we discuss the role that DCRT can play in improving school climate and culture, and how DCRT can serve as a tool for advancing broader goals related to educational equity. Finally, in Chapter 8, we show how the stories by teens at Youth Communication can be put at the center of teaching and professional development. Other things to know about this book. Student stories. All student examples in the book are from stories written by teens in the Youth Communication Writing Program. We describe a bit more about that work in Chapters 1 and 8. We give the age of the student at the time he or she wrote the story. All of these stories originally appeared in Youth Communication's print and digital magazines. As you will find out, some of the students choose to be anonymous, and others choose to have their names on their stories. Language. Who are I, we, and you? When you hear I in the audio, it mostly refers to me, Gess LeBlanc, and my experiences. At times, it also references the experiences of Tim Frederick and other youth communication staff. Tim and I are both teachers who have experienced many of the challenges that all teachers face, so we often switch to we when writing about common issues that we all face in teaching. You, of course, are the listener. The primary audience for this book is educators, including teachers and out-of-school staff, students who are studying to be teachers, and school and district administrators. Regardless of your race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, or other demographic or cultural descriptor that is important to you, if you are a teacher in today's increasingly diverse America, you are going to have students whose backgrounds are very different from your own. Thus, this book is for all educators. Pronouns. In recent years, in our work with students and colleagues, we have learned not to presume someone's preferred pronoun or that a person fits into the male-female gender binary. Though it is stylistically inconsistent in this book, we go back and forth between he, she, and they. Resources. We refer to many resources that you can use to implement ideas in the book in your own classrooms, your school, and your district. Otherwise, we've given enough information to search for the resource. You will note that our references to the resources are suggestive. We don't describe the resources in detail. We encourage you to access the ones that fit the needs of your school and community. However, we do offer professional development, which can include exploring and practicing many of the ideas in the What Teachers Can Do and What Schools and Districts Can Do sections of this book. Academic research. We also refer to many academic studies and briefly summarize the key points that are relevant to DCRT. We hope this book will spur you to think about your teaching and to make changes in your classes, your school, and your district. We know that identifying practices that improve classroom teaching and district policies so students are more likely to achieve the best possible outcomes is a never-ending process. Our teaching and professional development work is part of that process, and we are always eager to improve it. We invite suggestions about the ideas in this book and welcome opportunities to work with school districts. Gess LeBlanc, Hunter College, School of Education. G. LeBlanc at hunter.cuny.edu. Tim Frederick, Youth Communication, training at youthcomm.org. Chapter 1. An Introduction to Developmentally and Culturally Responsive Teaching, DCRT. I may not be the smartest in the class, but I am generally ambitious and hardworking. For a long time, though, math and science classes were an exception. I was content to get by with lower grades in them. That mindset changed thanks to my sophomore year physics teacher, Mr. Stevens, not his real name. Taking physics seemed like some type of punishment. I brought a poor attitude with me to class each day, just wanting it to be over. I ended up failing the first marking period. I convinced myself that it wasn't a big deal and continued with my sour outlook throughout the second marking period. I guessed that my teacher could see I didn't care and would be happy to keep failing me. But one day at the end of the second marking period, something unusual happened. When the bell rang, I hopped out of my desk and started gathering my things. Just then, Mr. Stevens called my name. I looked up. He said, "I'd like to speak to you once you're ready." I nodded. Great. He was going to give me a boring lecture on how I should take advantage of the free education I had been given or start asking why I didn't care about school. Blah, blah. He didn't know me. He just knew my performance in this one class, so I wouldn't let his aggression affect me. What could he do? Threaten to call my parents? So with my head up high, I walked over to his desk, ready for anything he was going to throw at me. Right away, he gave me a welcoming smile and asked how my day was going. Surprised at his friendly manner, I told him I was actually a little stressed about a geometry exam, but other than that, I was all right. I assumed it was small talk before he landed the big speech, but what he had to say next surprised me even more. "I just wanted to let you know that I know you're not doing as well as you could be in your class. I'm positive you are capable of way more, Neha. I picked up your transcript from the guidance counselor's office today, and I see you have good grades in your other classes. Physics is a little difficult for you, huh?" I couldn't answer. I was trying to digest the fact that he actually went and reviewed my transcript. I wondered if it could be that he was actually curious about me as an individual. But part of me was just defiant. He said I was struggling in my class. Hello, physics was his class, not mine. I was just forced to take it. He continued, "I want to invite you to tutoring. I tutor Tuesdays and Thursdays, and plenty of students come in. It does get crowded sometimes, so I can't always guarantee I'll be able to help you on the particular topic you're struggling with, but I'll try." I tried to read his face, wondering what the catch was. The tutoring sessions weren't news to me, but I never expected him to reach out and invite me. Most teachers only pay attention to the students who look like they care. My geometry teacher always told us, "I'm not even going to bother with kids who do not want to help themselves." This teacher obviously had a different approach. Youth communication writer Neha Basnet, from How I Conquered Physics with Unexpected Help. My first lesson in listening to students. In the fall of 1992, I was a 24-year-old doctoral student in New York City. Like many of my classmates, I struggled to balance the demands of my courses with the need to support myself. Rather than look for work as an adjunct professor or a researcher, I took a job with a nonprofit organization helping to run an after-school program at a junior high school in East Harlem. Since I was pursuing my degree in developmental psychology, I figured, what better way to learn about development than by working directly with developing youth? I had grown up in the northeast section of the Bronx, so it wasn't as though I was raised in a wealthy suburb of the city. But East Harlem seemed like a completely different world to me. We were in the midst of the crack and heroin epidemic of the early 1990s that hit East Harlem extremely hard. Unfortunately, the neighborhood became synonymous to some people with drugs and crime. When I told friends about my new job, I could see the concern on their faces. "Are you sure you want to work there?" they asked. "You know that's not a safe neighborhood, right? It's like a war zone over there." As I prepared for my first day of work, I tried to mentally prepare for the war zone that would soon be my new place of work. Since I was working with an after-school program, I arrived right before the students were dismissed. Before I even entered the school building, I noticed several adults with orange buckets. They were walking around the schoolyard, picking up things. I was curious, so I moved a bit closer and asked what they were doing. They said they were removing needles before the students could be dismissed into the yard. I was stunned. I tried not to react, but I felt defeated even before I met my students. If that's what these children had to deal with every day, I thought, how could I possibly relate to them? As I walked to what would become my classroom, I felt sad for the students. While they were entering the room, I was thinking about their schoolyard and the challenges they faced each day just to get to school. With a combination of anxiety mixed with ignorance and arrogance, I introduced myself, sat down with my students, and asked them what they thought about their school and their neighborhood. I thought I knew how they would answer and expected their answers to lead perfectly into the motivational speech that I already rehearsed in my head. I was going to tell them the one about if they did well in school, they could go to a college, get a job, escape their neighborhood, and have a better life. But that's not how the conversation went. One student answered by saying that her neighborhood was loud. Almost without fully listening to the rest of her sentence, I was already hearing her say that being loud was bad and that she didn't like where she lived. As I began to feel sorry for her and what she had to endure, she continued, "But it's not a bad thing. They play music from my country and it reminds me of home. It helps me to sleep at night. I really love it here." "I love it here too," another student shared. "This is my home. It's my favorite place in the city." I have no idea what my face revealed at the time, but inside I was stunned. How could a place that people described as a war zone bring such comfort to my students? How could they love a place that I thought they would want to escape from? I often think about that time because it reminds me of how my beliefs and expectations about students can influence how I teach them, what I think they're capable of, and how much I engage with them intellectually. Most importantly, it reminds me of the value of getting to know my students. At the same time I was beginning my work in East Harlem, the staff of youth communication was refining an award-winning journalism program in which public high school students learn to write powerful personal essays about the challenges in their lives. The teen writers commit to a rigorous process in which they write more than a dozen drafts under the tutelage of full-time professional editors before their stories get published. The writers come from a wide range of backgrounds, including youth living in foster care or homeless shelters. And the writers attend a wide range of schools, from the most struggling neighborhood schools to elite public and private schools. All of the student examples in this book are from their stories. The stories show aspects of their lives unseen by all but their most trusted teachers. But like my East Harlem students, when the teens write about tough circumstances, they don't dwell on the negative. Rather, you will hear they focus on how they manage those challenges and even overcome them. Sometimes, of course, what we mistakenly see as a sad challenge, the writers see as an important part of who they are. Like the occasional conversations when students really open up in our classrooms, the stories are a valuable window into their lives. They show the stressors that we may not be aware of. They show what is valuable and important to them. And they show how teens use resourcefulness, creativity, and resilience to overcome challenges and achieve their goals. In short, they offer the kinds of information that would help all teachers be more effective, but that too few of us have access to. One goal of this book is to help equip teachers and school leaders with skills and strategies that will enable them to hear students' voices and to integrate their experiences into instruction. Fortunately, on that first day in East Harlem, I heard those voices. I asked my students to tell me about how they experienced their neighborhood before I started imposing my stereotypes on them. Had I read some of the stories by teens at Youth Communication before that first day, I would have had a more nuanced and accurate understanding of the complexity of my students' thoughts and feelings. For example, Roberta Nin Feliz, 16, describes her rough Bronx neighborhood very differently than I would have imagined it before my experience in East Harlem. At the entrance of my building, there are a few things you might smell: weed, urine, or food. But once you are inside, smelling the various scents of everyone's cooking is as pleasant as discovering an extra dollar in your pocket. Their cooking always smells bien sazonado, well seasoned. When you walk past apartment doors, you can usually hear the women of the building bochinchando, gossiping. The women usually gossip about the neighbor's daughter who got pregnant, or the neighbor's son who sells drugs on the second floor. They can point things out better than even the most detailed forensic scientist. Of course, Roberta is not oblivious to the problems in her neighborhood, but for her, they exist in a larger context. In another part of her story, she writes, "If you travel 2 blocks east of my block, you will come across a parking lot where men come to pee. As soon as it gets a little dark, the alcoholics and crackheads scatter to the gate and relieve themselves. It is bad enough that I have to avoid dog poop. I also have to avoid disgusting men's urine. But the most distinctive trait about my neighborhood is the smiles. Everywhere you look, there is always someone smiling. On the same block where a 19-year-old kid died, you can find children playing hopscotch. The single mothers smile. The crackheads smile. The unemployed men smile. The dealers smile. The addicts smile. Everyone smiles. Every corner you turn, you are guaranteed to always come across a smile." The complexities and contradictions of her neighborhood have also helped Roberta to become a sophisticated observer who has learned to avoid the kinds of stereotypes that are often applied to her. I'd like to help one of my close friends. We've known each other since 6th grade. He has dyslexia, so it's hard for him to do schoolwork. I remember him asking me to help him read. I tried, but he got frustrated and said, "I don't get this shit." Today he's in a gang. Still, he's one of the most caring people I know. I can count on him to listen and give me sound advice. When I've gone through bad breakups, he's there to remind me of my worth and help me stay positive. I tell him that he should stop fighting and be focused in school. He has 6 younger siblings that he has to be a role model for. There are periods of time when he stays out of trouble, but eventually it seems to find him. This friend is just one example of how being raised in the hood has made me more understanding and compassionate. Before I judge, I get to know a person because I know how it feels when people make assumptions about you based on where you live or your appearance. When I'm on the train, I often feel that people are caught by surprise when they see me pull up.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?